I am Paul Sams. I'm Head of Property here at Dutton Gregory Solicitors. My role is I oversee the property teams which span across our range of offices, which are across the south coast from Poole, Bournemouth, Winchester, Chandler's Ford, now with an office in Woking in Surrey to service the home counties, and our latest office, which is in Liverpool in the northwest, which opened in May of this year. What makes Dutton Gregory unique, and pardon the sort of cliche here, is the people. I really enjoy the people I work with. I hope that the majority of them enjoy working with me, and we enjoy working with our client base. We cover all areas of the law, but with a strong focus on property, whether that's the residential property team, our commercial property team, the different sections within both of those departments with the experience they've got, our very large and nationally recognised landlord and tenant team, to our property litigators and the spin-offs that the likes of our wills, trust and estate planning department and family departments all benefit from. We are very much a property focused firm, but our uniqueness is that we have the best people doing the best role, and they're very, very passionate about what they do, which I hope comes across to our clients and our referrers. Well, where to start? There are lots of challenges with the house building industry, but I would say there are a couple that are very challenging. Firstly, the fact that the government have decided to scrap the targets on house building, and I always think it's a good idea to have a target, because otherwise what are you trying to achieve? But coupled with that, we have the fallout from the Renters Reform Bill, which seems to have been led by a group of individuals that have managed to persuade the government that there is a huge problem. I'm not saying there isn't a problem with rental properties and things could be improved, but with a lack of property being built and the Renters Reform Bill removing no fault evictions, there is likelihood to be more rental properties being sold. Therefore, there'll be less properties available for rent. And if less properties are being built with a population which is growing, then we have a real issue with housing, because no one will have anywhere to live unless we do something drastic to change about it. Well, I don't know if Dutton Gregory as an individual organisation can actually overcome this. The obvious point, I would think, would be if we made these issues non-political, like lots of issues that we all face, life perhaps would be easier. It's interesting that the word politics comes from the Greek word politika. I've probably pronounced that wrongly, but that means affairs of the city. Housing is very much an affair of the city. You need to ensure that you have enough housing for your residents, whether that be for them to own, which is a very British thing, or to rent, which is a universal thing across the world. But what we try and do at Dutton Gregory is to work with the house builders. We are very lucky that we receive referrals from a lot of house builders and act for a lot of smaller builders, and also the professional bodies that our landlord and tenant team get to work with. We're looking actively for solutions to the problem, whether that be to try and cut down transaction times, whether so the speed from instruction to exchange we're doing very well with. We can't really affect the completion time because we're relying on developers to be able to do that have their own problems with supply and lack of trades, etc. Whether that be that we can give the advice that many firms think they can give, but we know that we can when it comes to things like the Renters Reform Bill and how landlords can prepare themselves as best to deal with it. Ultimately, though, this is all providing an opportunity, and we'd rather remain as a firm positive about it, because if we remain positive, we can find solutions to those problems. We might not have all of them to hand now, but we're very sure that if we work with the people we work with closely, we can come up with something and try and improve the system. I would think that a lot of us would like to see the planning system reformed. Again, if that was non-political that I mentioned earlier, I think that would help. I think there needs to be an incentive for house builders to build. I was a huge advocate of the Help to Buy scheme. The first version of it between 2013 and 2021 perhaps was abused occasionally, in the fact you'd have someone that bought with Help to Buy and then bought another property with Help to Buy. I think the iteration that came in 21 to 23, where first-time buyers only were allowed to use that, I think that would be worthwhile having again, because ultimately that fed money back to the government, and that made more money than it cost in the first place. And it is accepted just about by everyone across the political stratosphere that house building is good for the local economy. The statistic that's often bandied around, and no one politician or otherwise really wants to argue about it, is for every house built, a further £10,000 is pumped into the local economy. Whether that's someone calling the pizza delivery company on the day they're moving in, or the removal, or the curtain lady that's coming around to fit curtains, it all contributes. But I think that we need to do something to incentivise the house building industry, and also to incentivise landlords, because they're not the devil that certain organisations have painted them to. There will be a few rogues, as there are in the house building industry, as there is in my industry as well. But they're few and far between, but supporting them is good for all of us. And I think that's one of the changes I'd like to see: more support from central government and more planning permissions granted. Well, I'd like to think for global domination, but perhaps I would like to see us consolidate our position as trusted advisors across the country. We're doing a lot of work all the way from Blyth up in Northumberland down to Penzance down in Cornwall, from Lowestoft out in Suffolk all the way across to the tip of Wales, as far west as you can get. We're very fortunate that as a firm we receive a lot of referrals from house builders and developers and estate agents, and also our landlord and tenant team are predominantly receiving a lot of quality work from really good letting agents that we work with. I'd like to see us consolidate on that and perhaps open a few more offices in the next decade to make sure that, although we are a national firm, we can see people more conveniently face-to-face in more locations and bring our passionate, personable but pragmatic solutions to even more people across England and Wales.